Hey there, bestie, and welcome to another tier list with Scar. So today I'm going to be doing a tier list on One Tree Hill characters. This is a show that I've loved for many years. I think the first time I watched it was when I was 17, and I don't think I watched the after high school bits until later. So I don't remember those quite as much, but I do want to do a big rewatch because I haven't done one in a while and I like rewatching shows a lot. Anyway, all of that aside, I figured we could just jump in and start. My only concern here is that I'll be putting like all the characters in S tier, obviously except for like Dan Scott, but you know, I'm very concerned about that. Because I love a lot of the characters. One thing I do want to mention is I've listened to a lot of the One Tree Hill podcast with the actresses that play Peyton, Brooke, and Haley. And there was a lot of shit on the show that should have happened, a lot of bad writers and stuff like that, which is noticeable with some of the storylines. So I can't necessarily speak on all of it, if that makes sense. Like, as in, some of the characters have some problematic bits, but we kind of have to look past that and look at the character, ignore what the writers did to them. Let's just jump in. So, starting off, I think this organized it in alphabetical. It starts with Bevin. Bevin is just such a lovable character, in my opinion. She's just kind of sweet and lovable. I love her. I want to put her in S tier, but I'm going to put her in A tier right now because it's so hard for me not to put everybody in S tier. So I want to put her in S tier so bad. I might have to. We might move this around in a bit, or I might just stick with it. Next up we have Brooke. Brooke is S tier for me. So obviously in the start, Brooke can be very problematic with a lot of the things she does, but I think what it comes down to is, honestly, Brooke is just a lonely child and she didn't have good parental guidance, and a lot of the things I think that she did was to get attention but in the wrong ways. And I feel like Brooke is a very complex character and I love watching her evolve as the seasons go on. Brooke has like a really special place in my heart because I relate a lot to Brooke. Honestly, she's just got my whole heart. I love her so much. I didn't think I would like her when I first watched her because of some of the stuff she did. I think it was the same with some other characters like Peyton. Like, they really just made her so unbearable, but then she blossoms into this amazing, great character. And honestly, I love both Brooke and Peyton so much. God, I was such a fan of this show. It's I do think the older I've gotten and the more I've rewatched it, the more I understand the characters. Is because when I was 17, you know, obviously I'm watching this as a teenager myself, and I'm just like, oh, you know, like, everything is more black and white when you're a teenager. But the older you get, it's less black and white, and everything starts to make sense. But Brooke just has a very special place in my heart, so S tier. Next up we have Chris fucking Keller. Okay, I punched my mic, I'm sorry. Here's the thing about Chris. He is unbearable. He is redeemable later on, but oh my god, I just can't. I'm gonna put him in B tier. I don't think he's a horrible person or horrible character, but he's definitely unbearable to a certain extent with a lot of he's Chris, okay? And I have to put him in B tier. I'm sorry. Alright, next is Dan. Is there really any question other than to put him in D tier? Come on, he killed Keith, his own brother, and he does a lot of just shitty, terrible things. And I do think with shows like this, they take these characters and they make them like exaggerated versions of themselves because it's TV, it's good TV, right? But Dan is just genuinely a terrible person. I mean, he killed Keith and blamed it on a child. It's unforgivable. It's truly unforgivable. Dan took a terrible situation and made it worse. So Dan's just a bad person, and I don't care how much they try to redeem him. That's all he'll ever be, is honestly just a bad person. I can't stand him. But I do have to say, the actor that plays him is fucking incredible. He does an amazing job of creating Dan's character, like such a believable job, and from what I understand, he's an absolute sweetheart IRL, so that's awesome. I think his name is oh god, my brain is blinking. Is it John? I don't want to get it wrong, but anyway, he's, from what I understand, a really nice person IRL, but his character, evil. Truly, truly evil. Alright, next up we have Deb. Part of me wants to put her in S tier. Deb is smoking hot. She's beautiful. I love her so much. I love how independent and just... honestly, I love Deb. I love Deb so much. I love how she'll put Dan in his place a lot. I'm gonna put her in A tier only because some of her decisions on the show are very questionable, but I think that has more to do with the writers than the character, but I definitely think she could have been a better parent in a lot of ways. So that's why Deb's gonna go into A tier. Okay, next up we have Haley, S tier. Obviously, how can we not put Haley in S tier? I really love Haley's evolution on the show as a person. She starts out being the good girl, the girl next door, and then I feel like we were all just waiting for her to come back and be with Nathan, and it was kind of painful to watch that. And listening to the podcast, it sounds like they didn't maybe initially plan that in the writing for her. It was more of like, at least the actress felt like they were maybe trying to consider writing her out of the show. But I do feel like it was somewhat realistic to a certain extent, because when you're the good kid your whole life and you're finally presented with an opportunity to do your own thing, I feel like it's hard to not make that decision. And it was definitely hard to watch her and Nathan have so many issues because it felt like they were so perfect and cute together. But as a teenager, I was so mad at Haley, but as an adult rewatching the show and having more experience in my own life, I feel like I understand Haley and why she did what she did. And honestly, she becomes such an anchor in the show. You just can't help but love her. And also I've always kind of had a crush on her. She's beautiful and just awesome. Oh my gosh, I think we're gonna have another S tier. Jake Rogowski. He is heartthrob 100%. Jake, in my opinion, just like, how can you not love Jake, right? Like, how can you not love him? Downside is he has a kid, but other than that, I feel like Jake is the character that always tries to make the right decision, that always tries to do the right thing. And honestly, if Peyton did not end up with Luke, I would have been okay if she would have ended up with Jake. Honestly, I love Jake. I feel like everybody kind of just loves Jake. He's just lovable, and I wish we could have had him on the show more, but sadly we didn't get him on the show much. So sad boy hour. All right, next up is Karen. This is Luke's mom. I love Karen. I think that she is very real, and I don't know, I just love her. She's smart, intelligent, she's beautiful, and there's just something homey about her and motherly about her in a way that's like, damn, I kind of wish Karen was my mom. I just wish that she didn't have to go through the things that she did with Dan and everything there. I'm gonna have to put her in S tier. Like, how can I not put Karen in S tier? See, this is my problem. I love the characters so much. I should have thrown in more that I didn't like because, oh no. I hate it here. Oh god, Keith. Oh, Keith. S tier. Keith doesn't always make the best decisions, for sure, but I loved Keith, and I honestly wish they would have given us more of Keith and Karen. He died too soon, and it made me very, very sad. That was honestly so shocking when I was 17 to watch him die. I couldn't believe it because I don't think I'd ever watched a show quite like this. I don't know what genre this would be under, but like teeny bopper. television. I had never watched a show like this. I was never allowed to watch shows like this. I actually watched this without my parents' knowledge. I would have never been allowed to watch something like this, and I'm glad that I did because I love this show. But I was shook when Keith died. I wept. I cried so hard. I did not expect it, and I don't think that I recovered from that for a very long time. Now, watching it over and over, I know what's coming, but I still cry every freaking time because it is heartbreaking. This show has me by the balls, and then it breaks my heart. Okay, Keith is it's like a stab wound. It's like ripping open a scar or like a wound every time I rewatch it. I love you, Keith, and I'm sorry that this happened to you. All right. So next up we have Lucas. Lucas is going on A tier, and the reason that Lucas is going on A tier is, my God, okay. I love Lucas. I was obviously watching this show, I was like, oh my God, Lucas is like the best, and I love how thoughtful and everything he is. But the thing about Lucas is he was young and very dumb in a lot of ways, but that's kind of to be expected of teenagers, of kids. I mean, they're all teenagers. That's the thing. They're teenagers, they're people, and you're gonna make a lot of mistakes, and I'm probably gonna get flack for putting him not in S tier, but that's where I'm putting him. I'm putting him in A tier. I think Lucas is great, though. I love him. Alright, next up we have Mouth McFadden. Oh, Mouth. I love Mouth so much. Absolutely S tier. Mouth is just way lovable. I adore Mouth. I just do. Mouth is just chef's kiss. How can you not love Mouth, honestly? Alright. Oh God, this might be more controversial because Nathan is going to S tier. My lord, we have so many ups and downs with Nathan, especially in the later seasons. And in the early seasons, but honestly, Nathan's evolution is beautiful and I love it, and I think in a lot of ways it's very realistic with the way that it happens. But I love Nathan, and I think that in the end, he got it together. You know, they gave us a happily ever after ending, which I like the idea of, for sure. So yeah, S tier. Next up, we have Peyton. Whenever I first watched the show, I related the most to Peyton. I was definitely 17, angsty, all of that. For sure. I feel like a lot of people really relate to Peyton, and I think that I related to the pain that she was going through and the trauma that she had, and to me that really hit home for me. Even though I related a lot to her, I don't think that I ever had the confidence to be as angry as she was and as hurt as she was. I was always way too nice when I should have been more like Peyton growing up. But I did relate to the very hurt little girl side of her so much, and the parental neglect that she had was just icky. I hated that for Peyton too, as she just did not have any parental guidance, but that's a lot of the kids on this show. They just didn't have Brooke's the same, and I think that's why Peyton and Brooke were such good friends. But Peyton goes S tier. Also, I wish we could have seen her in the second half, but I totally understand why the actress didn't want to with all of the stuff that was happening on the show. It was terrible. I urge you to look into it, but there is a trigger warning because it was very bad stuff, so be careful if you look into it. Alright, next up we have Skills, who is S tier. I'm sorry, I keep putting everybody in S tier. I don't think this is how this is supposed to work. Maybe I'll cut it down to 3 people or something. I don't know if I can do that actually. But S tier for Skills. We love Skills. He's just full of heart, full of comedic relief, and full of love. Skills is just chef's kiss. I love Skills. I love Skills so much. We love Skills. Next up we have Tim. Oh, Tim. Tim is also the comedic relief of the show. From what I understand, he had to ad-lib a lot of what he said on the show, or come up with funny things to say, but I think he did great. I think he was funny. I think some of the jokes weren't always great, but I think that has less to do with Tim as a character and more to do with the writers and the time of this show. I'm gonna put Tim in... I'm gonna put him in A tier. I think that I like everybody way too much on this show. This is my problem. I like them too much. Next up, we have Victoria. Victoria is Brooke's mother. We get a lot of her in the second half of the series where it does the time jump. She's a terrible person. I am torn because I want to put her in D tier, but is anyone as bad as Dan Scott? That is the question. I'm gonna go ahead and put her in C tier because I just don't think anyone is as terrible, horrible, awful as Dan Scott. It's kind of hard to beat him. Alright, next up is Whitey. We love Whitey, and I would put him in S tier, but I've already put so many in S tier, and for that reason, he is going into A tier because I cannot help myself. I love them all way too much. If I did have to choose 3 characters to go in S tier, and this is definitely a bias thing, I will be honest, I would definitely put Haley, Peyton, and Brooke in S tier. This is just who I am as a person, but I think that if I could, I'd put them all up there in S tier, which I can. That's my option. Anyway, I know there's a ton more main characters that come later on in the series. I didn't want to cover them until I rewatched the show again because I just don't remember enough of some of their storylines to really feel like I can put them into the tier list. Just because it's been a while since I've rewatched the show. I wanted to put the ones that I remember the most because I did not that long ago watch up to a certain point, and I need to go back and rewatch it. I've only watched this full series twice, I think, and then I've rewatched the first half multiple times. I do feel like there is a shift in the show with the time jump that makes it a little hard to jump into. It feels so different and hard to swallow, but I do feel like it's definitely worth the watch. Definitely very dramatic and a lot of crazy stuff happens, but that's any show that runs for this amount of time that's very dramatic. So that is my tier list. For S tier, we have Brooke, Peyton, Haley, Jake, Karen, Keith, Mouth, Nathan, and Skills. A tier is Bevin, Deb, Lucas, Tim, and Whitey. B is Chris, C is Victoria, and D is Dan Scott, obviously. I do think that a lot of the people that they were great with their characters, great actors, great actresses, amazing. I love this show. It's so dramatic, it's so cringy sometimes, but I love it, and that's it. That's all. I love it. Anyway, let me know who you would put in your S tier for this show. Who would be in your S tier? Your top 3. Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. I am doing 25 days of tier lists for December, so make sure you check back every single day. I'm going to be covering other shows as well, a ton of other things. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this tier list. Make sure you subscribe if you like what you're seeing. Like the video. Support, please. I appreciate it. Anyway, thanks for watching. Drink your water, eat food, and take care of yourself. And I'll catch you tomorrow. Bye, besties.